Hey guys, Dave here from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with some of the crew and our special guest today.
Hello, I'm Carrie.
I'm Ted.
I'm Ryan, but you probably know us all by now, so.
Yeah, it's a good possibility. Yeah. And today we're talking about allies and adversaries and how they, game master tips, how they affect your campaign world. And I think in this one, right, we're talking about big scale, not the guy next door, but the nation.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
So what do we know about this?
We know whatever the GM has laid out before us, but other than that,
it's a mystery.
It is a mystery. One of the things I like to do when I start planning a world is I like to have people start small. Have them start not necessarily in a podunk little village, but you know what? A lot of people, they want to start in the palace. They want to start in the castle. And you know what? When you're starting there, where do you go? Right? You got to have some place to build up to. So I like to have them start in a little town. And then that way they've got places to build up to, because you know what, you're going to have allies and adversaries in a little town, so something's going to happen. You're going to have to take care of it, and oh hey, mayor's going to get involved. Well, is the mayor a good guy or a bad guy? All right,
it's funny you mentioned that.
Well, my session that I ran last session, like the arc's been going on for like 7 or 8 sessions, and they literally just found out that the mayor's a bad guy.
Oh, all right then. I was reading your mind.
Who knew? Yeah, I like the same thing. I like to start my campaign small, and then just kind of like keep dialing out a little bit by little bit. As as the players explore more, then you expand upon it more. And again, as they get stronger and more powerful, then it ups the scale on what they're dealing with, the politics.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although the allies and adversaries thing could be like a much smaller scale. Like you look at a show like Downton Abbey, and like it's all about like like the intrigues of like servants basically, and there's like servants that work against each other and this and that. So it's like a much smaller scale sort of thing. But like it's like once the party's graduated beyond that sort of small politics.
Well,
and the
anytime
politics get bigger.
You have a community, you have politics, you have intrigue.
Oh yeah.
Whether
the water cooler talk at like your job
in the office, the church, in a neighborhood association, in the town, in the city, the nation. It just gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
The consequences get a bit bigger as well with when you expand out. But you're going to have that at every level of play, like you said. Whether you're starting off, and it's just a village. And basically there's the mayor, and maybe there's like the old ones that everyone kind of looks up to, whether the women or old men of the community, and they help the mayor kind of run things, and maybe like that could be a tension right there if they don't agree with each other on a certain thing, because even though the mayor's technically in charge, these guys have a power base.
Right. Well, I mean, so I think part of it too, to like let your players have agency in the game. The idea is to have like a few organizations and like let the players figure out where they fall in amongst those, like how they get along, because it's not really for you to say, but like you could have the Thieves Guild, the Artisans Guild, and like I don't know, maybe the group of like royal loyalist types, and like figure out how the party runs afoul of them or not, like see if their agenda, how it falls in line. But sometimes the players might want to make overtures to those groups too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, if they decide they're going to steal from the Thieves Guild, there's going to be consequences there.
Somebody loses a finger in the thing. That's all I'm saying.
As they start off, dealing with the mayor. From there, maybe next it's the baron that's responsible for that area, and then that area ties to, so as you go on, you go up the scale, up the ladder. It escalates, maybe in that town.
It escalates.
Yeah.
Right, Carol.
It escalates.
Yeah.
It escalates.
It escalates in escalates.
Yeah. As you go up the ladder, as you branch out, and you have to deal with dukes and barons, and
perhaps war dukes.
Perhaps the war duke.
Yeah. The war duke. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, but one of the things I like to build in as they're doing that, you start off in maybe, they get to that first town. Maybe it actually has a wall. They're going to make contacts. A wall, right? And they're going to make contacts. And some of these contacts they could have for the rest of the campaign. If they need certain information or a certain special item, and they go back to these friends. And you know what? It's a little town in the middle of nowhere. This isn't an important town. But you know what? Maybe the king or the queen has a spy in that town. And one of your contacts is really one of those people that you've hidden in the campaign that they met in level 5. And they're not going to see that person again until level 12. and you find out that person's really been spying for some evil character that they're going to have to deal with at level 15, that comes back and bites people in the butt. It's really nice to plant those little guys there that they've relied on and trusted for 10 levels, and then, oh, man.
Or even your town with the wall, since this town has a wall, let's make that kind of important.
Yep.
Maybe you need to smuggle something in or out of the town, like a high-value person or relic or whatever. You know who you have to cozy up to? The Brick Masons Guild, because they know a secret passage or whatever. They built that goddamn wall, and they know how to get out undetected and sight unseen. You know, this group that you thought would not be important at all, you know, they've just risen to some stature.
Yep.
Yeah,
so now you got to make friends with them, and now you've got more contacts.
Yep.
And maybe they'll connect you with somebody you need to know in the next town.
It's true. It's true, because they're part of a larger organization. They talk to other Brick Masons. And,
like you do.
Yeah,
they send brick messages. They just chuck them.
Brick over the wall. Yeah.
I guess they don't travel very far.
The courier pigeons of the, of the land. The brick.
The brick.
It's everywhere you want to be.
A great setting for that is like Eberron, where you have tons of organizations and you have all kinds of intrigue going on. You have kingdoms, and then you have merchant houses.
There's always, well, who is siding with who is in, what kind of position based on, how the war ended and everything else. I mean, there's tons of that intrigue.
So I guess the real question is like how to bring that get that into your campaign. Like if you're running a homebrew, and how to get your players invested in these groups, how to set it up so they're making these allies and creating adversaries at the same time.
Well, I mean, it's not only the players' adversaries and allies that they've created, but you also have to work within the confines of, well, these guys here have fought or on like in a Cold War with these guys, so like there isn't any kind of trade. They're suspicious of anyone traveling
barriers
from one
that
direction.
are going to be set up to them doing certain things.
So like you're going to have to deal with that kind of stuff.
If you trade with the Wool Buyers Guild here, you will never get a ship out of this town.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, any times you could imagine that your players needing to come into contact for goods and services could be an opportunity to put out some of these allies or nemesis. Like maybe somebody gives them a bunch of poisoned meat because they were bribed, by the Thieves Guild or something like that. So the general store that they went to for rations gave them poisoned rations. So it could be.
Well, either that, or if you have two nations where there's tensions that's been building, but or the past there's been tensions, and now all of a sudden, like they're trying to sign a treaty.
Mm-hmm. There's going to be people that want to see that happen, and people that don't.
Right. So, and the players could be on either side of that, really. Depending.
And you could have a group that literally is divided. You could have. We talked about an evil game. In our last video.
Relative to whenever this goes out.
Relative, of course.
Right.
But if you've got a group of people that are all for the treaty because they're a bunch of good guys, and you've got that one person in the party who's trying to spoil the deal, he can be doing subtle machinations to whisper to this guy or pass a note to that guy and see if the communication of the treaty can be disrupted.
Yeah, but I mean that one player doesn't have to be evil. There could be this massacre that the other civilization committed on the other, and they're like, I will not forgive this grudge. If they're a dwarf have a very long memory of trespasses.
They have memory museums, right?
Right.
They can take you through a walk in their memory museums and say, this is the day that so-and-so killed my uncle, and this is what happened, and this is what the weather was like on that day, and they can describe it to you. In so much detail.
The master race.
Of course, it all comes back to the door. Yeah.
Yeah, but like if you have intrigue with another country, those things don't just happen overnight. I like to plant those seeds and let it build, where you get a rumor, or maybe you run into, you pass some refugees on the road that are running away from something, and eventually that's going to get out of hand and spill into your kingdom. Now you have to deal with it.
They find a missive, something that was written that was meant for somebody else's eyes that they happen to come across. It doesn't really make much sense to them at the time, but like then some other time later, the circumstance starts to, this sounds a lot like this.
We have something about that.
It's all about foreshadowing. So it's foreshadowing and scale and scope, right? So when players are just starting out, characters are just starting out, they're not ready to handle that stuff anyway. They'll get eaten alive. It will be like Game of Thrones, where when Sansa
beheaded on the steps
Sansa Stark and the Starks get get to the capital, and they're like totally out of their element. They don't know how to deal with it, and that's what a lot of the early lower level characters are going to be like. They're going to get eaten alive. So you can do foreshadowing, like they get a message that wasn't meant for them, or like you said, refugees are coming in. Well, why are they coming in? And they could. They could take. There's a couple stances they could take on it, like why are you coming here? You're eating up our resources. You can't come here. Or they could be like, oh, well, these people need help. We should help them. Or where are they coming from? Can we
profit from this?
Can we profit from it, or can we fix the problem at the time? I mean, actually, we in one of our early campaigns where we were talking about the one character, Mike, who was kind of the bad guy. Mm-hmm. That's what you guys did. You guys they started a settlement from refugees, and Nate's character became the mayor.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was a monk or cleric. He was
a monk.
Yeah. He was a monk because he KO'd the ogre.
Right.
That's
both of them.
Oh, right, because percentile dice.
Because percentile say F you, you're going down.
He had an 8 strength, and he knocked 2 ogres out in like one round, or within a round of each other.
Before Dex was like a power stat, like it is in newer editions of Dungeons and Dragons.
This was totally second edition.
Yeah. So in that case, and all through that campaign, that was happening. Not only that, even Ted's character in that campaign came from another nation on a quest, and so he kind of
fulfilled.
Oh no!
So he kind of brought that stuff with him. Later in that same campaign, we had a hobgoblin invasion. In one of the cities, it was like a small city, and you guys had built your settlement outside of that, so it actually became I guess an adjunct to that city, so there's definitely things you can do. You can grow your campaign as you go. Of course, Michael's trying to profit from it, like you said. Where these guys are just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished, really. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's always good to have that neighboring kingdom that you can go to war with. So when you do work your way up to the palace and you take it over, then you've got the next kingdom to go to.
Yeah, the next problem to solve.
The next problem to solve. Then you take it up to the next plane and just keep going.
Yeah. So we haven't really we've talked kind of about allies, but I don't know if we've went too much into adversaries. It's kind of cool if you can drag something on in the campaign where a force has been working against them for a really, really long time, but they don't really find out anything concrete.
They always see the effects of it, never the actual
the hand or whatever. And then you can have it be a court advisor or something, someone that on their face was always friendly and helpful to them, but the reason he spent so much time is so he can get intelligence to because he's got masters to contend with and sort of work at odds.
Well, that goes back to what Kerry was saying about you basically plant the mole early in the campaign.
Yeah.
It's their friend, their advisor, maybe a mentor, and then you find out 15 levels later, oh, wait a minute, he's either the bad guy or in league with the bad guy, and you're just totally got stabbed in the back.
Yeah. Now you've got somebody to go after. That's motivation.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I heard this mentioned on the Happy Jacks podcast, which is a great podcast. Check it out. But they were talking about the idea of you never want to just introduce an NPC that's being helpful just in that session. Your players are automatically suspicious of somebody that just shows up and wants to help. But if he's somebody that they've done favors for, they've saved his life or whatever,
you got to give him roots too.
Yeah. You got to have made that person appear at least 3 or 5 times, before the betrayal or whatever they do has any sort of impact. They didn't really mean anything if you just introduced them in one session.
It's you got to make your players love them.
You got to hurt them.
As I said in the beginning of the video, Sound Leaf Blade, he was the mayor. He hired you guys. You've done many missions. He gave you guys medals. He actually kind of pseudo pardoned you for your crimes, and all this stuff was going on. Other than the one player who casually he's the bad guy. Kind of out of nowhere without any real evidence. Nobody really had a clue. Nate was working with him the entire time, totally under the assumption that he had to be a good guy. He's the mayor. He's a hero of this town. And all this time, it's just this huge backstory behind it all.
Well, and you're not, it's seldom, and you don't want to go to this well too often. Because then your players are automatically, it's the first thing they
you get to do it once in a game.
Right, exactly. Twice. During the course of, or if it's been going on for 10 years and 2-3 times, you can do it. But like, it's rare that the person that's in a place of authority over you like is betraying you. Like, if it's the head of your church order or whatever, it's rare that they're the one that's selling you out. So yeah, it is impactful when it finally does happen, if it happens.
Unless you read books, it happens all the time.
Scott now suspects everybody. And before the session was over, he's ready to point fingers at everybody. He's like, "Oh my God, everyone in this town is going to be evil.
They're all blood.
They're all blood cultists."
Can't
He's just
trust
gonna.
anybody.
The only way I can prove you're not a blood cultist is if you're dead. So totally a blood cultist. Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
The
blood cult for 2015.
That's right. Well, I choose a lesser evil, really. Well, 2016. That's when the primaries. Come on, it's a long.
2017. We're planning.
It's a long bloody path to become the POTUS. So.
Nartiki test.
Oh boy, I'm missing something.
That's all stuff from my game. So
Cool.
So, is there anything else anyone wants to add?
No, I think
No,
we've tipped over this king.
Nice.
There we
We
go.
laid it to rest.
All right,
So,
short, sweet, and to
It
the
was
point.
a draw.
with that, why don't you put your comments down below? What you think about allies, adversaries, how you handle it in your game?
Or some cool instances of that.
Absolutely. While you're doing that, feel free to click like, share, even subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on nerdarchy.com.
And you can hang out with us also on Facebook.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.
Nerdy.